Well, thank you. I just want to say from the start that this is a supreme honor for me, and I'm really grateful to be here and become a part of the NEB community, so to speak. So I'm an American. I'm from Oklahoma, actually, but I've spent the last 30 years in a theater in Germany. It's the Stadttheater Bielefeld. And I'm one of 5 conductors. This is an opera theater with a complete ensemble, and I'm one of 5 conductors who is responsible for the entertainment side of our season. So anything that remotely seems like entertainment is sort of my job area. And so I do the musicals. We have a season that runs like a school year from the beginning of September until like the middle of July. And then we have a summer break and then start the next season. And every year my theater does about 12 music productions, of which 3 are musicals. The mostly American musicals, actually, because there aren't that many German musicals. The German musicals are operettas. So the rest of it in the music department is the operas, traditional operas. And in 2015, we started having a series of meetings in November and December about what they want to include in the program for the season after that. And I'd had this idea that I kind of ventured to approach them with. They were all horrified at first. But I said, yeah, why don't we think about, I have this idea about making a musical out of DNA. And stony silence in the room. Nobody responded, everybody was terrified. And I said, no, I think it can be really fun. I mean, we can, it can be done kind of like a comedy, and there are 2, as I'm sure everybody here is well aware, were 2 major events that happened the first event was in 1950, and then the next one was in the year 2000, that I had learned about. I have to back up. I took an online course in 2010, that's how all this began, called Genetics and Evolution. And I really just took it just to do something different than music. I mean, it's totally different than what I normally do, and I was just absolutely fascinated. Didn't know anything about it, but I was totally fascinated and began thinking about DNA and the science behind it. And then I read up about the Watson and Crick discovery of the double helix, and read about it from a historical perspective, all that happened, their sort of competition with Maurice Wilkins and Rosalind Franklin. And then after that, shortly after that, I saw a BBC documentary about a race that happened of which I had heard nothing about. And this was, of course, the race in the 2000s to decode the human genome that happened between Francis Collins and Craig Venter. And I just started thinking about these 2 ideas, and I was thinking, well, maybe we could, I was interested in trying to put that on the stage. So what I did, so that was the point where I suggested to my theater, before I'd written a sentence or a song, and I'd said, I think this really tells a story. It's a story about discovery, the most significant achievement. It could really be a celebration for our continuing expanding knowledge about the universe. And at first they were skeptical, and then I wrote them a little prologue, and they said yes. And then I was terrified, because I thought, I'm going to have to write this thing now. I kept turning corners. They had already made this poster. And so every time I would be walking home from work, I would turn a corner and see a poster and think, yeah, there it is. I have to write it now. So they gave me a year to work on it, and I began seriously working on it. And what I did was I thought about these 2 stories, and I thought, well, double helix, that's a double strand. And I very early decided that this needs to be connected somehow, these two stories. So I thought, well, the same cast that would tell the one story would have a parallel part in the next story, and scenes from each story would be overlapping, sometimes even played at the same time, spiraling around one another like the Molekul itself. Or that was at least what I tried to do. And so in that sense, this is the genesis of das Molekul in Bielefeld. And yeah, so I would like, we've prepared the first little scene from the show. And so I would like for you to sit back now and imagine you're in a Broadway theater. You've just paid $165 a seat for each ticket. And you're sitting, I need to go over here and put on my glasses. You've come to the theater to see a story. And this is a story about science. A story about one man climbing the highest mountain so that he can look out at the distant horizon, and another man climbing onto the shoulders of the first man so that he can see just a bit farther. And both of them asking themselves the big questions that need to be asked. Where are we? How did we get here? What is life? Maurice Wilkins is an X-ray crystallographer at King's College in London. He's cautious, dedicated, but unfortunately he can't get used to the idea of a woman doing science. Francis Crick is a molecular biologist at the University of Cambridge in England. He has a brilliant mind that jumps incoherently from topic to topic and almost literally never stops talking. Maurice Wilkins is about to get a new colleague from Paris.
It's much too cold in here.
I beg your pardon.
I have very sensitive equipment arriving from Paris later this afternoon. We'll need to keep the temperature at a constant 18 degrees.
And Francis Crick is about to meet a new research assistant at Cambridge.
Excuse me,
Yes?
I can't make out this handwriting. Can you tell me where Dr. Bragg's office is?
You must be the new guy from America.
These two meetings will change the biological sciences forever.
From Paris.
I say, what bizarre hair. Has it always been like that, or was your plane struck by lightning?
These people are all searching for something having to do with genes, chromosomes, and heredity. They don't quite realize it yet, but it's a molecule. And one like nobody has ever seen before, unique on the planet, and for all we know, in the entire universe. The year is 1951. It's a bright Sunday afternoon in early May. Francis Crick has just invited his young colleague over to meet his wife, Odile.
And that's when he turned to me and said, "What do you mean, enzyme synthesis? You'll be sweeping the floor and washing out the beakers."
So you came all the way to cold, dreary London just to learn X-ray crystallography then?
Yes, I'm afraid I did.
But what on earth for? There's so many doing that these days.
I'm interested in the structure of DNA.
What a coincidence, so am I.
Rosalind, do you know where Ryan laid that last batch of photos?
I thought he said he put them on your desk.
Really? I didn't see them. You do that with great skill. Did you learn that trick in Paris?
No, this was my own idea.
Impressive. Oh, don't forget, John Randall wants to see us both tomorrow at 3. I think he's getting nervous about Linus Pauling again.
I won't forget.
And once more, Crick, I think they've got it backwards. I believe that DNA just might have something to do with heredity.
You know something, Watson? So do I.
Francis, what is DNA exactly?
It's a very large macromolecule, a real monstrosity made of sugar phosphates, nitrogen bonds, and endless chains of 4 repeating base nucleotides. Nobody knows quite yet what it's good for, and everyone calls it the stupid molecule.
I've looked everywhere and still can't find them.
Have you looked in your briefcase?
I can't find my briefcase either.
Brian will be here at 4.
Of course. How do you always get these to come out so perfectly?
I experiment with every conceivable mixture in the salt solution and keep an eye on room temperature. A constant ambient temperature and a strictly controlled saline solution encourages better growth.
That may well be, Watson, but everyone here thinks genes, whatever they actually turn out to be, will be found on proteins.
I'm not so sure about that, Crick.
Heredity. Whoever solves that puzzle will most likely go to Stockholm and win the Nobel Prize.
Francis?
Is something wrong?
That look. He gets it when he's about to have an idea.
I say, Watson, why don't we take a shot at it?
What did I tell you?
A shot at what?
DNA, structure, composition, the whole bit.
That sounds time-consuming.
It sounds very time-consuming.
It'll be fun. You said you were interested in DNA.
I meant I'm interested in understanding the X-ray pictures better.
Sooner or later, someone is going to do it. And the history of science has demonstrated one thing very clearly. It's better to be sooner. Sometimes you have to take the risk doing science. The chances quickly pass and leave you far behind. You can't afford to hesitate. Just relax while you contemplate. Doing science demands an active mind.
But how do we go about it? What experiments? We can't afford to make mistakes. Be careful what you undertake. Science. Don't jump in the lake that one thing I'm gonna do that
No experiments, Watson. I propose thinking. We'll build models.
Linus Pauling builds models.
Well then, if that's how Linus Pauling works,
One aims to always be precise, doing science.
But struggles not to miss the forest for the trees.
You execute your daily chore,
Will you find what you are searching for?
doing science. There are no guarantees.
There's a status to attain. Doing science. Rung by rung up the ladder, day by day. But when my husband goes insane, doing science, then the nights get dreary and drab, and each meal is blander than crab, 'cause he's locked himself in the lab with DNA.
All right, Crick, you've convinced me.
you have to learn to seize the day. Doing science.
Throw caution to the wind and gather your
And once we start to theorize, we might even win a Nobel Prize. If we're daring and attentive, if we're rigorous and wise, if we're clever and inventive.
That was fantastic. The NEB volunteers, amazing. The short amount of time that they had to practice, they just met Bill yesterday afternoon. There was some rapid practicing, and I think it was fantastic. Thank you so much, Bill. Does anybody have any questions for Bill? We can take one or two questions if there's anything. No? Okay. Oh, Heidi.
I know I'm new to the award ceremony, but I do have a question. How long is the play, and do you share it with sort of students and educational audiences? Or
So,
primarily for pleasure?
yeah, it's a normal length. I mean, you could compare it to My Fair Lady or West Side Story. It has a first act and a second act. So it ran about, I guess, 2 hours and 20 minutes all inclusive. So it's with the publisher in Germany at the moment, and they're trying to market it for theaters, for the German theaters, because it would require, at the moment, it requires a full orchestra, and the German theater system has at their disposal, every German theater has a full symphony orchestra. So yeah, I would wish that it could be also sort of geared toward universities or so, because I would think there would be a possibility that.
Wonderful.
Who came and what was their response?
Right. So everybody, we have an audience that comes to all the musicals, and this was, what was different about this musical is that it attracted, of course, a lot of attention from the university in Bielefeld. These were the scientists, and they also were helping me write it, because I'm definitely not a scientist, and so they were informing me if I was making the hydrogen bonds, if I were talking about them in the correct way, and so right, and I if I could just say, their reaction was terrific. I was a little bit worried about their reaction, because I took, of course, in order to make this into a stage play, I took certain liberties with reality a little bit. I mean, I read about these stories and I thought, well, if you just sort of exaggerate these historical figures, this would be an example. I mean, James Watson, there's a character called Linus Pauling. I'm sure everybody knows who that is. He is described by, James Watson went to his, I think it's called Alpha Helix, seminar in Naples one year in 1951 or so, and he described it as, well, this guy got up on tables and was screaming and doing short little jumps on a table. He described it as being very uninhibited, an uninhibited thing. And so I took that as liberty. The way we did it, of course, was I turned him into a sort of Fred Astaire character with a glittery tuxedo, backed up by the women's chorus, all wearing a T-shirt that says Alpha Helix with pom-poms like their high school. So I did take several liberties, but the scientists all loved that.